So being in alignment truly is a different frequency for your cellular structure. So for our generators, manifesting generators, that's satisfaction. Like we're using our creative energy from a place of response. And when we respond, we feel satisfied.
Welcome to Tried and True with a Dash of Woo, where we're all about mixing tried and true strategies that actually work with the magic of manifestation and the science of programming your unconscious mind so that you walk away feeling integrated, inspired, and aligned. I'm Renee Bowen, certified life and business coach, professional photographer, middle-aged wife, and mom to now 3 grown kids. I've built 2 multiple 6-figure businesses with 0 business training by digging in, learning the methods, and now I'm here to pass them all on to you. From photography and business strategies to energy healing, human design, and the basics of manifestation, we cover it all here. I'm here to help you embrace your multi-passionate brains and lean into the fastest and most efficient ways to reach your goals, whatever they may be. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, or maybe you're just here for the woo-woo, let's dive in and explore all the exciting ways to take your life, business, and self-improvement to the next level. Thanks for joining me, and get ready to be inspired. Hey friends, welcome back to Tried and True with a Dash of Woo. I am your host, Renee Bowen. And today I have a really amazing guest. Her name is Leanne Wolfe. So she's fascinating. We're going to talk about human design, but Leanne is a trailblazer guiding clients toward complete alignment with their business. Okay, so through the fusion of human design and manifestation practices, Leanne empowers business owners to rediscover their authenticity and self-actualize their business vision. She inspires a new generation of coaches and spiritual entrepreneurs to let go of the shoulda, woulda, coulda mentality, and so they can actually really embrace and embody the destined direction of their full potential. So our conversation today is centered around human design, but specifically how we can use it to manifest more abundance in our lives and anything actually that we truly desire. You're going to love her energy. She's a manifesting generator, and we kind of touch on a lot of different topics. So I know you're going to love it, whether you are new to human design or whether you're sort of well-versed in it. There's a lot of really great takeaways for you here, specifically about how to get out of your own way, which is something that a lot of us struggle with. So let's go ahead and dive into this amazing conversation. Hi, Leanne. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am a big fan of human design, and so we're going to definitely jump into that. And first, I kind of just want to I always love to know what brought people to what they love to do. And your story is really interesting. So share that first before we kind of jump into our topic today, if you don't mind.
I will do that. Thank you very much for having me here, Renee, and sharing with your audience. So I was a bank manager for 10 years. And at the 7-year mark of that career, the organization had actually indicated that they were going to be putting in a new computer system. And this is, way prior to human design. And I remember sitting in the boardroom and I'm like, oh, there was this whole feeling inside my body. I'm not going to be here for this new computer system. Like that cycle is going to come and I am not going to be jumping into it. Of course, I didn't say anything to anybody. I just kind of went, okay. So fast forward 3 years, computer system's ready to go live. And I'm like, I'm out. I made sure my entire team was fully capable in the system. And I'm like, bye. So I left that career, very lucrative career. And we also have a cattle ranch. So I had the wherewithal to be able to come home, be with my cows, my nature, and just totally decompress from, 10 years of being a middle manager and kind of holding this umbrella and making sure that my people were doing what they were doing and, you know, holding all that stuff that rolls downhill off of them. And after that year, I sat down at the computer and I just said, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to re-enter into the world. And I typed in new age business and human design popped up.
Wow.
Yeah. So like what I understand and what like my experience and experience with other people, human design finds you in that moment where it's like, hey, there's space for it to show you the magic. And I had decompressed. So I knew that there was space. And as soon as I saw my design, it was this deep permission slip to be okay with who I was, right? To honor that and trust it. And it was a feeling of being at home. So I jumped in with both feet and dove into the very, very deep end because that's how I am built. And I learned everything that I could. I grokked every piece of material that I could of raws, and I went to every single class. And yeah, I love it.
That's so cool. I'm a big believer in that as well. We're gonna find what we need when we need it. And yeah, I mean, that's basically what I've heard from, well, it's been my experience too in finding human design and my experience in sharing it with people because most of my coaching students, I will pull their charts and I'll look at it and it just helps me learn how to coach them better. But there's a few of them who are like, tell me more, tell me more. They really want to go deeper with it. And I love that. And most of their experience has been that too. It's like it's a permission slip of like, oh, okay. Because especially because most of my coaching clients tend to be Manny Gens. Surprise,
Okay.
surprise,
Right.
because they're creatives. And,
Yes. Yeah.
the biggest thing that they say to me anyway is, I have all these ideas, I have all these things that I want to do. And I feel like I'll never get them done. And I don't know how to list. It's just this chaos, right? And once they really understand their design and realize that, okay, not all of them are maybe for you to do, like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
visionary and, that's part of your genius. But it's like a lifetime of fighting against who you are, right? Because I'm a generator and I really kind of feel like we're in a generator world. I don't know, or we have been. I feel like we're
Yeah.
moving, right? And we can talk
Yeah.
about that too. But I kind of feel like most people tend to try and conform to that. And us generators, like we even can get too bogged
Oh
down with
yeah.
that. But it's especially hard for projectors and mani gens. And like, once I found all of that out and I started pulling the charts of my kids and realized that my twins were
Mhm.
projectors, and I was like,
Oh
oh
yeah.
my God, I really wish I'd have known this when they were young. Because my husband's a mani gen and I'm a
Oh
generator. And so
yeah.
these poor twins,
Yeah.
we're just dragging them along on every vacation. Like, we're going to go see 500 things on this vacation.
Yeah.
And they're like, why?
Yeah.
Why are we doing all of this? You know what I mean? So it's been really eye opening. And I feel like that coming home to yourself is definitely a good analogy. So thanks for sharing that. And I wanted to, like I said, kind of, when we were talking before, we can kind of go anywhere with human design and I love all of it. But what's been top of mind for a lot of my community and even myself and just the world in general, right? Like kind of just where we
Mhm.
are, the vibe of
Mhm.
everything. Um,
Yes.
how can we, like, from your experience as well, like, how can we use our human design or align with it or, really understand it better so that we can step more into, like, quote unquote, manifest this abundance, right? So a lot of my creatives, especially, will have this, well, I know I'm good at this, but I don't know how to make money at it. Or I know that a lot of
Mhm.
photographers, especially,
Right.
like, I want to work with these people, but I don't know how to make money at it. So what would your advice, like, what's a good starting point at least? And we'll see where that goes.
Oh, this is a question that you're opening up that, man, I could talk for the next 2 weeks straight on this. I don't know if your people would
It might be
be
a
into all
series.
of it. Exactly. So I have lots of belief systems on, where we were energetically with the cross of planning and watching that and where we're going with the cross of the sleeping phoenix. But when we take a look at what happened in that cross of planning is that we gave up our authority. And by doing that, we forgot how to use our minds properly. We started using our minds to make decisions for ourselves, we started using the mind in a very, very small way. And what I am recognizing is that manifestation, the moment that you are introduced to human design, the core tool is decision making. And it says, get your mind out of the decision making because your mind doesn't need to do that.
Yeah.
Your mind actually has more power than confining it into this, oh, this and that, this and that. Should I do this? Should I do that? If I would do this, I could have that, blah, 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 blah. All this like tiny thinking. And let those decisions come from the intelligence of the body. Okay. And then what happens is this big old consciousness field that's totally neutral and every potential's in it. It's flowing through us. It's all around us. It is us. Now we get to use the mind differently. Go, okay, I want to create this. Now the mind goes out and retrieves those potentials, brings them back into your awareness. And now the beauty is you have this discernment tool of the intelligence of your body, your inner authority. Now you get to go, okay, I'm going to connect with that. Nope, that is not the one I want. Yes, this is the potential I want. So when we can really simplify it and not make manifestation like this woo woo, crazy, I can't do it, right? Because we're doing it all day long with our negative thoughts, right? And we're keeping ourselves in this
Oh,
little
yeah.
tiny small thinking where the mind is actually designed for big thinking. And it'll go out and get those potentials and bring them back to you. So if you have all these ideas and you're like, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I do this? That's small thinking. Okay, I want to create this. Let your mind go out and source it just like a Google search. Bring back all the potentials, and then your discernment will say, okay, that is correct or that's not correct, period. And if the idea is for you, if that creation is actually for you, you will engage with it. If the creation is not correct for you, you will not engage with that potential. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 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 And I think that what most people struggle with is trusting that, right?
Yes.
Because
Yep.
that
Yep.
overthinking brain just goes along
Yep.
with being a creative a lot of times too,
Mm-hmm.
but again, and so how can people really get better at or practice getting out of their overthinking mind and more into the body and trusting that?
And so I'm going to say, go into your creative muse. Instead of having the ideas, blah, 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 get your hands busy, get your body, not busy, but get your hands and your being in that creative space.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that be reading a book, walking into your kitchen, creating a salad, going for a walk in nature, whatever it is. Because if our, when our minds can be expansive, we allow that space for it to go out and do its thing. If we're stuck in the how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I do this? We're not using the intelligence of the body. The body is so intelligent, right? That's muscle memory. That's all those things, right? And I get it. We have to decondition out of some of those old patterns because that's muscle memory. But the longer you're in design and the longer you're using it, you recognize that those old patterns, they do have a tendency to just step out of the way because now you're using everything correctly. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. I always tell people like, if you want to be creative, be creative, right? Because
Yes.
it's kind of that
Yeah.
same idea. Like if you are feeling stuck creatively or you're feeling like you can't really, or whatever, maybe you've just kind of like lost maybe you're burnt out or headed there.
Right. Yes.
Do something just for you, like create just for you and not for clients. So it's kind of that same idea is like, just
Yeah.
get something in your hands, get something going, right? Because just that act of propelling yourself into it is usually what you kind of need, but it also is what a lot of people are resistant to, which is very
That's,
interesting, which
I
I think
know.
is very unconscious programming. And you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like fear, safety, like that whole thing, this doesn't feel safe because
Yeah.
your old programming is going to pull you back. So
Yeah.
with that being said, that's something that's really interesting to me because of my work with the unconscious mind and hypnosis and everything that I know about it.
Yeah.
How does that come into play a little bit with human design, right? Like, so, I'm a 2/4
Mm-hmm.
emotional generator, which was interesting, first of all, for me to find that out because I was like, I don't really consider myself emotional. But
Yeah.
when I learned that no, it's kind of my decision making and things like that it's
Yeah.
different. It wasn't
Yes.
what I thought it was
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
from that
Yes.
connotation.
Yes.
When I kind of found that out, it was like, okay, um, so what does this really mean as far as like, because I know I've got a lot of old programming about money that I've definitely had to rework, like most of us do, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, do or is that like a certain, let me just kind of, I guess, phrase it like this. Is it something that someone really needs to look at their chart, look at their like channels and gates and things like that? Is that something that is more beneficial for someone as opposed to, just sort of looking like the generalization of their energy type? Does that make sense? Or
Yes.
there's
Yes.
certain things that you can like where should people be, I guess, focusing some of that work and how they can integrate working with these unconscious programming and like reprogramming it, right? And yes,
Mm-hmm.
using some
Mm-hmm.
tools, but how does that sort of weave into human design, if anything? I don't know if that makes sense,
Yes.
but it does in
Totally
my
does.
brain.
I totally get it. All right. So in design, we have the personality and the design, all those activations, right? The planets have activated gates, lines, blah, blah, blah. And through that, that's what, whatever you want to call it, God, universe, creator has said, represent this. Just represent this. Okay. Then on the other side, we have all the openness. So you can have undefined channels, undefined gates, undefined centers, all that openness. That I this is a space where I take my people to because that's where all the juice is. So we unpack, right? That's the deconditioning because that is a space. I look at it as like a revolving door in a mall. You go out and have experiences through all that openness. However, people come in through that exact same door and window to come and have experiences with you. But if that openness, if you're like holding on to, for example, in your chart, okay, let's just look at the ego center, okay? The ego center, heart center is undefined, right, Renee? And in that, the people around you that had low self-worth, they kept dumping this stuff in your doorway. And you're like, oh, well, maybe that's my low self-worth. And then you started picking it up, right? And instead of pushing it out your doorway and cleaning it up, you're like, oh, I'll better bring this into my house, right? And now all of a sudden, your doorway, there's all this mud and it's tracing into your house. And all of a sudden, you're like, well, maybe I have low self esteem too. Maybe I have low self worth. And you started to believe all that stuff. That's the deconditioning process. So let's get the shovel. Let's clean out all that stuff out of the openness because those open spaces actually are the conduit for money to come in to your world and money to go out your world. And mostly what's happening is it bounces up against that mud and goes away because it's like, oh, I'm not welcome here. I can't come in here, right? There's no space for me here. So let's clean out those open spaces so that they are open. So the conduit for money, relationships, wisdom, learning, it's clean, it's crisp. And now you grok the wisdom. Now you let the money flow through you. Instead of holding on to the muck and the mire and the yuckiness, everything just flows. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you probably see a lot of that, I guess. I would guess in your work. Um,
Yep.
I know I do too, like we definitely suck it all in, especially as
Yes.
kids.
Yep.
But it is interesting to think about it with respect to human design and those open
Yes.
centers, because explain that a little bit for people, because I know that a lot of my listeners don't really they don't have like an advanced knowledge of human design. So I do want them to kind of understand what we're kind of discussing. So
Yeah.
on your chart, there's open centers and there's defined centers. So walk people through the basics of that and what that kind of means, because if they're looking at their
Okay.
chart, they'll be
Right.
able to understand.
So if you're looking at your chart, there's going to be gates, channels, and centers is what we call this body graph. Okay, it's kind of composed of these three different technical aspects. But all of those planetary activations that you see in your personality, in your design, they, like, if you're a reflector, you're just going to have a whole bunch of hanging gates. But if you're any other type, you're going to have hanging gates. There's going to be gates there. There's going to be channels and centers. Now, what is activated colors aspects of your design. So you're going to have activations inside the design. I don't know if I'm explaining this exactly how your listeners need this explained, but those are aspects that we call them your strengths. They are your characteristics. They are your attributes. This is what you are designed to now go out into the world and teach other people about by representing it in the most clean, truthful version of what it is designed for. Okay.
Mhm.
But the openness, all of that white, that's actually how other people, they're actually designed to come into your space so that you learn about how that energy is supposed to be represented. Okay. So if you have people coming into your world, okay, let's go back to this ego center, Renee, and they come in and they have a defined ego like myself. Okay. And they come into your world, but they're not using that ego center correctly. Now, what you do is you get to learn the wisdom of that. Oh, that person's using it correctly. This person isn't using it correctly. So now your discernment process says, okay, I'm going to gain the wisdom from the person that's actually operating correctly. And you will engage with that frequency so that you can learn it.
Mm.
So that openness is like this gateway space for you to gain the wisdom. And now you get to teach them about, hey, I'm going to teach you about solar plexus energy, root center energy, sacral energy, identity energy, throat energy, ajna energy, because that's what's defined in yours.
Yeah.
So now you, in reciprocating to them, will teach them your activations, your strengths, your energy, and you're going to teach them that where they are teaching you their energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So basically, if you're looking at your chart and there's a whole bunch of white, open, not colored in, that means undefined, just in the very basic sense.
Right.
And that's kind of what we're talking about here is like, that's where that's an opportunity
Yes.
to learn.
Huge.
Yes.
Yep. But
Interesting.
what we do as humans, okay, and this is the difference between human design and any other system out there, is it, of course, I'm very biased because I love human design, is that every teaching that we've ever had right from the very beginning of time was work on your weaknesses,
Mm.
right? And human design says, no, 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 no. Stay true to your strengths. Represent the strengths. So all that activation, all those colored in areas in your chart, just represent that. Because the minute you try to work on your weaknesses, it's just like a muscle, right? Your strengths and characteristics and centers and all that are defined, if you're not using them, they atrophy, right? So just like your
Mm.
muscles, if you're not using those muscles, they atrophy. And you're trying so hard to work on the weaknesses, meanwhile, your strengths are starting to atrophy. So what design says is no, stay with your activations, represent those. And then what happens is now you get to interact with other people and bring them into your business, into your life, into, your fitness regime, whatever it might be. You bring in those other people and then they get to represent their strengths. And now all of a sudden everybody starts to work correctly together and things start to fit like, puzzle pieces. because you're not over here worrying about, how do I do this? I got to work on my strengths. I got to get this done. I got to do this. I have to be this. No, you just sit in the truth of who you are. And then the whole, you know, magnetic monopole brings in exactly what needs to be brought in for you to then experience.
Yeah, that's the deal, right? Is like that whole phrase, living in your design. That's what people mean when they say that, when you are really honoring your design and
Yeah.
celebrating the
Yeah.
way you are perfectly made, um, and
Yeah.
expressing that, that's when everything comes to you.
Yes. It's
And
exactly.
that's really I love that, because I also talk about that a lot in terms of resonance, right? Because
Yeah.
when you are
Yeah.
living in your design, you are truly resonating. You're like, I always call it the radio beacon,
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
you're like out there just telling everybody what you're about, when you are really living in your design and celebrating all of that, and not forcing yourself to either be someone else, or comparing yourself constantly, or just dealing with all of that muck, like you said. um that is when all of that, like whether it's business, clients, money, love, whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's where we are able to pull it in, because it's what we're resonating, because our beacon is so clear
Yes.
that everyone else can just the ones that it's for, the same frequency, right? It's going to come right back to you. So
Yeah.
I hope that
Yeah.
helps us like explain things, because I think that that is a really that's something that we don't talk about a lot, I don't feel like. And in terms of
Right.
human design, it's about that self-awareness. I always tell people, like, it is such a phenomenal tool of self-awareness.
It is.
And ultimately, as a business owner, like whatever you're doing in life, I think, but especially if you're an entrepreneur, you know, and you're a solopreneur, maybe that can feel really lonely too. But like, if you are, if you're not doing this from a place of like honesty and authenticity,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, you're going to get burnt out really fast.
Yes.
And it's
Very.
really, I see that all the time. And if you're doing it just for the money, that's not in alignment either. Yeah, right. So,
No.
if people are sitting there thinking, okay, well, how do I get in alignment, right? Like, how do I
Mm-hmm.
align to my design? Um, what would you say to someone who is, fairly new to human design, maybe poked around a little bit? What would your best advice to someone in that position be to help them feel more in alignment?
Right. So there's the beautiful signposts in human design. So being in alignment truly is a different frequency for your cellular structure. So for our generators, manifesting generators, that's satisfaction. Like we're using our creative
Mhm.
energy from a place of response. And when we respond, we feel satisfied, right? Whether we baked one cake today or we baked 10, our level of satisfaction comes from response, period, right? It's not our output, it's our response and that level of satisfaction. For our projectors, we have this energy of success. Well, when they are invited in and they are really, truly masters at asking questions because their target audience are generators and manifesting generators. And when they truly hone in and really master their craft of question asking, they're unstoppable because people will notice and recognize and invite them in. And seeing that satisfaction rise in humanity, that's where projectors really feel that success. And then if we look at our reflectors, that awe and surprise of really, how does this whole thing work, right? Like they get to stand in the middle of a community and really reflect back the beauty and the magic that can happen, or they can reflect back, hey, you know what, this isn't working. And then we have our manifestors who can just inform and actually declare and create those creative spaces for us. so the rest of us can do our work. Now, when we're operating from there, that manifestor is doing that from peace. That reflector is doing that from awe. That projector is doing that from success. That manifesting generator or generator is doing that from a place of satisfaction. Now all of a sudden frequency is elevated. However, if we're doing it from the lower density and we are in friction, we are efforting, we are angry, we are frustrated, we are bitter, we are absolutely disappointed. So if any of those cross your mind at any time, guaranteed you're trying to work on your weaknesses. And when we work on our weaknesses, what usually happens is we're in this place of comparison.
Mm-hmm.
And comparison is a killer. And through that comparison, we try to conform. We try to conform to business systems. We try to conform to, what our parents wanted us to do. We try to conform and do all this stuff. And it creates a lot of friction. And then we become burnt out because we're using the chemicals in the body to effort instead of just flow.
Yeah. And those are the not self themes, right? That that you list off. So if you're looking at your chart and you see like, what is this not self theme? Well, it's a sign, like, for me, frustration, right? So I know that if I'm feeling frustrated, I'm working on the weaknesses and not from my strength of satisfaction. And just understanding that can be super powerful for sure.
Mm-hmm.
As people are learning about their energy types and design. For me, I looked back when I learned about design, human design, and I looked back and I was like, I really felt frustrated a lot of my life, like a lot, but there definitely were periods where I didn't. And that's where I made, choices and started businesses and, followed that joy, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I could look back and see, okay, that does make sense. That checks out. And so, I feel like and maybe you've seen this too, but like kind of globally, especially like, how everything is right now, right? I feel like there is so much, to me, it feels really like constricted, a lot of restriction, a lot of like tightness and
Mm-hmm.
holding back and scarcity and fear, especially around money and abundance and things like that. So
Yeah.
by stepping more into your design, you're doing your part, right? Like you know what I mean? Like
Yes. Yes.
that does have a ripple effect on humanity. And even though it feels to you sometimes like it's not working, so to speak, quote unquote, it is, right? As long as you are honoring your design and you're being the best version of you can be. And it's kind of like what I always say, like whatever it is that you're trying to do, just be the most you can
Mm-hmm.
be. And that's
Yeah.
really it,
Yeah.
I know a lot of things get in our way. I'm not trying to oversimplify it. I get
No.
it. There's a lot of
Yeah. Yes.
big and small traumas and tragedies that happen. Um,
Yep.
but at the end of the day, getting unstuck from that, I guess, sort of like victim mentality that I feel
Mm-hmm.
like is
Mm-hmm.
everywhere right now, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so what do you think? Like, is there anything else we can be doing, and maybe, through the lens of human design or not, through manifestation, whatever, and that maybe
Mm-hmm.
you've seen coming up as far as moving through that, like, things that are helpful. I know we talked about like kind of getting in your body, definitely like doing the thing. Um, but do you find that it's also sort of like specific to the energy types, right? So like for me, and I don't know if this is a generator thing or not, but walking, like I gotta get out and walk. Like when I am feeling frustrated, when I'm feeling really like, oh my gosh, I'm in it. I can tell I'm in it. Moving my body, walking, listening to music, that's really being in nature. That's kind of what brings me out of that. Is that something that, are there certain things, I guess what I'm asking is if it's like energy type sort of generalizations, or is this something that people just need to sort of experiment with on their own? Or how do they sort of like tap into getting back into their, true nature?
So, like again, I don't know how much your audience knows, but I personally, I would look at your design Sun Earth, look at that variable, and look at what we call the primary health system.
Okay.
Because first and foremost, if the body and the brain, if the physical vessel isn't well,
Hmm.
then the rest of it starts to fall apart. So actually on my YouTube channel, I think it's tomorrow, there's going to be a video coming out talking about the crystals of consciousness.
Okay.
Okay. So Ra always talked about the crystals of consciousness, the pineal and the pituitary having crystals of consciousness.
Mm.
Well, of course, it took it actually until 2019 where a group of scientists actually sat down and studied this. And they've recognized that the brain actually has magnetite in it. And that magnetite is a magnet. So when you're talking about radio tuning, not only do we have this beautiful magnetic monopole that's holding us all together and bringing these experiences, but inside of our brain, we do have radio frequency crystals.
Mm.
So now just imagine inside of there, like imagine if your brain isn't healthy and isn't being nourished correctly. Those crystals, think of it, even like think about nature, right? What does it do? It puts moss over top of that, right? It's like
Mm.
this starts. So then all of a sudden now the radio frequency can't ping off of that crystal correctly. Okay. So for you, I look at you have a left variable up there in your design Sun Earth. So your body and brain like activity.
Mm.
Okay. Then I look at your spleen and I see you have gate 32, 28, and 18. That's all a part of the sports channels. So your physical body actually appreciates activity. It just does. Your brain appreciates activity. Okay. It wants to be nourished correctly and often on a regular schedule. But I look at that and I go, yeah, of course, you want to go out and actually be active. Now, for myself, I have a passive body. I do have a little bit of energy in. I only have one gate of the sports channels. So, like going out and being really like intricate in sports and doing all that, like I did that as a kid, but I don't do any of that because my physical body wants to be more passive. So, slower movements, stretching,
Hmm.
slow walk, that kind of stuff. So it all depends on, not only your energy type, but it depends on the deeper layers of human design on how your physical vehicle wants to be nourished and loved.
Yeah. That's really cool. That's very interesting. Another thing that I loved learning about was the environment in
Yes.
human design.
Yes.
And I believe mine is mountains, which I think was it's really cool because I was like, oh, not necessarily like specifically mountains, even though I love the mountains.
Yep. Yep.
Um, being up, like, right. So if people are looking at their environments, I think this is a really kind of cool topic because like some of my
Mhm.
clients are like, markets, what does that mean? Markets, you know? Can you kind of go over a little bit about that? Because I feel like that would be really fun for people to like, if you see that on your chart, you have no idea what that means,
Yep.
right? Like that is another thing about like, oh, where do you feel your best kind of, right?
Yes. So anytime you're looking at the design side, that's your vehicle.
Right.
Always. It's your brain and body. It's like the hardware of how the software is gonna, operate through you. So when
Mhm.
the hardware is clean and crisp and correct and nourished from the inside and the outside, that's what the environment does. The environment nourishes you from the outside.
Okay.
So for you having mountains, a mountain environment also is conducive to less oxygen. Actually, your body has a capacity. So for you, you would acclimatize, your vehicle would acclimatize more the higher up you go. So you would
Hmm.
be able to hike in higher elevations and say, me, I'm a shores person. So, not that I can't do that, but your physical body actually gets better and stronger with less oxygen. And also in the mountains, it's like you take the high road when it comes to communication, right? This isn't gossipy. It isn't
Hmm.
that kind of stuff, right? It's like this higher elevated communication. So at the mountaintop, there's less people and higher quality communication. So those are the environments that actually serve you,
Yeah, that's really
right?
interesting.
Yes. So when your people are looking at that, I could go over all them here, but I don't know if you want me to do that.
There's a
But
bunch.
what yeah, there's six of them, and then of course there's
Right.
variations of it.
Right.
But think of the design side always as the physical vessel and how it needs to be nourished inside. That is the primary health system, and then on the outside is the environment.
Okay.
And when you can do that, and when you can lean into that and get the vessel clean, clear, crisp, healthy, now the software program, which is the personality, can run in that machine without the moss holding it back, or you know what I mean, growing over all your crystals. Now you have this clean connection. So when we go back to manifestation, that's the clean connection. We want the vessel to be healthy so that your radio tuning can actually go out into the consciousness field, which is totally neutral, and go source all of that potential and bring it back to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, because that's the deal. I mean, um, of manifestation, right? Like the word gets
Yeah.
thrown around a lot, but that's really what
Yeah.
it is that,
Yeah.
you know, being able to be so, like you said, clear, crisp, the signal
Yeah.
has to
Yeah.
be there. And so if you're weighed down by the self-doubt, self-worth
Yeah.
issues, which is a
Mm-hmm.
really big
Mm-hmm.
thing, you're not going to want to make that offer. You're not going to want to start that business. You're not going to feel
Right.
like you are much of
Exactly.
anything because you're comparing yourself constantly and living in that not self theme and really living in the weakness as part of it. So
Yeah.
that that's why another reason why I love human design, because first of all, I feel like I could just learn about it forever. And it's
Yes,
just such a
you can.
huge topic. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'd learned about the environments, like for instance, before, but I'd never really heard about it in that way. And it's so
Yeah.
interesting. It's just like anything else, like when you read books, because again, like there's a million self-help books, there's a million people out there talking about all these things, right? But what matters is like, for me anyway, I've found is, yeah, it can be the same message, but a different delivery system,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And so
Yep.
everyone, even though there's a lot of people who are working in human design, or a lot of people, a lot of photographers, a lot of creatives, like doing the thing that you do, what
Yes.
matters is your delivery method, your clarity and
Yes.
crispness in that messaging and who
Yep.
that is going to resonate with. That's your resonance. And so
Yep.
that's what's so
Yep.
cool, because like I'd never heard about, like, yeah, that being sort of like that, the whole oxygen thing. I'd never heard
Yep.
that part of
Yep.
that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Um, so I think that there's just so much, and I feel like I know, I definitely know a lot of my creative types. We've had conversations about human design. They're like, oh my God, I just
Mm.
feel like it's like so much. It almost is overwhelming to them.
Yes.
And,
Yep.
I feel like just like anything else, take the small steps, follow that joy. If it's starting to feel heavy, guess what?
Yep.
That's not an alignment. You know what I mean? Take a
Yep.
step back and see what does feel good and follow that. Do you
And
agree?
I totally agree. And I would say, sometimes that heaviness is your brain trying to like create new neural pathways. So allowing it that space, exactly what you said, just kind of, pull out of it, allow that neural pathway to trudge through and make that space inside your brain. But I would say, you asked me earlier, like where would you tell your people to go? And I would say, go back to strategy and authority. And I know you guys hear this all the
Mhm.
time. And people get so frustrated. They're like, what do you mean you want me to wait? What do you mean? Like they don't want to wait, right? But the waiting isn't a state of you're sitting on your couch eating bonbons.
Right.
It's just like a pregnant woman. She's waiting 9 months, but in that whole time, there is creation taking place. So
Mm-hmm.
lean into those creative waiting moments so that you can really hone in on and use your radio beacon to connect with the potential that is available. And then you get to know and use your discernment of your inner authority to go, yes, that potential is correct. No, it's not. Period. And the only thing stopping any of this, because source, universe, consciousness, it is completely neutral. Ask it whatever you want to ask it. The only holdback is your capacity to allow that to now flow through you, come back to you and flow through you. If you're scared, if you're in fear, if you doubt it, well, then that dense frequency is like, oh, this huge brick wall just got built. And the consciousness field is like, hey, the potential sitting here, I'm just going to drop it here. Once you take down that brick wall, it'll be there. It doesn't care. It's totally, totally neutral.
That is such a good reminder. I hope you guys really hear that because I feel like so many people, well, first of all, we weren't really taught that, you know what I mean?
No,
Let's be honest.
no, we weren't.
Um, we were ta- we were taught quite the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, a lot of us in different ways. And so really understanding the neutrality of that field
Yes.
and understanding that it's really you that's
Yep.
blocking it, right?
Yep.
With all the stuff. And it's not about blaming. It's just,
Nope.
you
Mm-mm. Just an
know,
aware.
it just
Just
is. It's not about
yep.
judging, right? So
Mm-mm.
when
Mm-mm.
we can drop that self-judgment, because that's someone else's voice, that's someone else's program
Yep.
installed
Yep.
usually in
Yep.
us as kids to look through that lens of like, well, I should be doing this or I should be doing
Yep.
that. That should stuff,
Yep.
right?
Exactly.
Um, yeah, I'm sure you hear a lot of that as well. But I feel like that is something that we all need to be reminded of, even those of us who know it and who have,
Yes. Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
been on the path, so to speak, for a while. We still need reminders, right? Like we are all going to have moments of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
seasons, that are more financially stressful or whatever it is. But I feel like the message that I really want people to hear from this conversation, at least, is that you have the agency
Mm-hmm.
to and the strength and the power and all of that to align so that
Yes.
your resonance, your frequency is clear so that you can access everything that you want.
Yep. Yeah. And like I look at it as Lego blocks. Like I have a little nephew who's just like
Mm-hmm.
amazing, right? He can think of something in his head and he can walk over to the Lego thing and he can just start creating it, right? And he is such a beautiful example for me to go, you know what? We have a thought. It's already being created. It's already being created. So all we need to do is just get out of the way. Let go of the doubt, let go of all of this stuff. Let that subconscious mind like ease into it and go, oh, there it is. It's there. It's right there.
Yep. It
Yeah.
is. It literally is. And I love that. Just move aside.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Get in alignment and move aside.
Yeah.
So I know that with what you do, because you have, and we'll talk about in a second where people can connect with you before you wrap up. But I wanted to kind of ask you as well, as someone who is extremely well versed in human design and
Yep.
all of that. What's next for you? Like, so where do you find yourself in this, space and time? Um, is there something, you know what I mean? Like, what does 2024 look like for you?
So I declared fun and conversation, and that's what I'm having this year. And I'm I'm declaring big things in my business.
I
I'm
love
like,
it.
nah, nope. I am declaring it. This material, I've tried to quit human design. Okay. I've tried to quit my business many times. I'm like, no, I'm out. I'm out. And it's like, no, you're not. Next morning I wake up, 10 new
Yeah,
clients, right? So it's like, okay, I guess I'm not quitting. But understand that it's okay to like bump into those moments and then just go, no, I'm not living in the friction
hmm
and declare something completely different. Um, I think we all have the capacity to do that and then just go, it's there. I know that that potential's there and it's there. I'm just going to allow it to come to me. That's it.
Yeah,
Done. So fun and conversation. Like I have conversations all this month. It's crazy.
that's
And
awesome.
there's no, I'm not here to like sell you on anything. I am just here to have community service and go, nope, let's just play. Let's just have fun and have great conversations. And that's what's happening.
That's fantastic. I love it. Yeah, that's kind of why I started this podcast. Same sort
Yeah.
of vibe, right? Like just sort of
Yeah.
open up the dialogue, open up the channel, see what comes in. Um,
Yeah.
I felt for so long I wanted to have the podcast, but I felt like, oh, it has to be this, or it should be
Mhm.
this, or it has to be
Yes.
about. And I'm like, no, it just can kind of be about whatever I want it to be about, that
Yeah.
day. And once I really just settled into that and said, all right, let's see where this goes, it's been really fun. So I think that that's just really good advice for anybody, just to follow the fun, follow the joy, because that it's always going to lead you to that next right step. I mean, truly, it really is. And it
I
lightens your frequency so much.
yeah.
It takes so much of that pressure. I always said, like, this is the year that I say, if it feels pressurized, I don't want a part of it. No.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Exactly.
I
Exactly.
unsubscribe.
Yes. Yeah, no doubt. Hey, exactly. And uh, thinking about the how, thinking about all that stuff, like doesn't serve how our mind is designed.
Mm,
So let the mind be free to just go out and find those potentials. The how is in the consciousness field. It will bring it to you. You do not need to figure it out. It will come to you and then it'll be like, "Oh, this is so effing easy," right? Because it'll be
yes.
like, "There it is." Instead of, trying to be in that tiny little friction space, just let it be available.
Yes, thank you for that reminder. Yes, that's fantastic. So tell people where they can connect with you if they want to learn more about you or learn more about your courses, and I'll put all of this in the show notes as well too. But where do you like to connect with people best?
So I have a YouTube channel. It's just Leanne Wolfe. So LeannWolff. No E's in there at the end.
Double N, double
And
F. I love it.
yeah, exactly. I That's where my community service is. I have like a library of I think 400 and some odd videos on there.
Yeah,
That's where I like to geek out and do my thing. Then if they want to connect, if they want to know design, if you do have people that are wanting to jump in, I have a self study that now I you can come
nice.
in for a 3 month trial of the mentorship where we go deep into design. We play in the charts. We go into examples. All the material is available, and I will give you a caveat. It is very robust. I have eight
Yeah.
first lines. I have eight first lines in my design. I don't skimp out on information. So everything that you need to know from the very, very basics all the way through to you want to be a relationship coach, business coach, or a wellness coach, it's all there. If you want to understand the life cycles and all, like absolutely everything's there.
That's awesome.
So yeah, and it's very affordable compared to a lot of other spaces.
Right.
And I will also give another caveat. I stick with Raw's original material because the keynoting does something to the cellular structure. It busts up all that not self and it just opens you up to the fullest potential that is you. So, and that is www.powerofself.ca.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll link all of that for everyone in the show notes as well. Because yeah, I do. I have a lot of people who ask me like, where can I learn about this? What's a good resource? And um, I'm always happy to pass that on because, again, the delivery method really matters, right? Like, so someone is going to align with, a certain thing in a different way, and maybe time wise too, right? Like, so it can sometimes be a timing thing. So I encourage you guys to go check out Leanne. And yes, her YouTube is such a wealth of knowledge. So
Yep.
amazing.
And then it also gives you my frequency. So if you resonate with the frequency, if you want a solid foundation, then you're there. If that's not what you want, you won't be there. So that's the beauty of technology, is you get to just kind of get a flavor and a taste for it. So thank you, Renee.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. This has been awesome. And thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining me today. Isn't Leanne just a pleasure to chat with? I just loved this really insightful conversation we had. And I think that there are a lot of takeaways that you guys can walk away with today. Mainly, I really want you to hear that being in your alignment and getting that really clear signal is completely possible and available to you at any time. Because I feel like a lot of us feel like that it's outside of ourselves, that we have to be reacting to our environment constantly in a way that is, protective. And when we realize that there are many tools that we can use for our self-awareness, self-development, and that the field is neutral, that the possibility is there, that all we need to do is really truly align with it and accept those parts of ourselves that we may have been trying to push away or, dim. So don't dim your light. That's basically what I want you to hear today. I know there's a lot of good takeaways, and I'm very interested to hear what yours are as well. So make sure that you follow me over on Instagram at Renee Bowen and shoot me a DM. Let me know what you loved about this episode. Obviously, I would love for you to leave a review. You guys know that I appreciate that so much. ratethispodcast.com/Renee Bowen, and you can leave it on any platform because I know a lot of you guys listen on Spotify as well. So all the links that you are looking for are there. ratethispodcast.com/Renee Bowen. And a couple of quick announcements for my communities as well. If you are looking for my group program, I'm going to link it for you below. Elevate, it's only $49 a month. And we do all things photography related, mindset related. I have a really awesome tool that I just gave to them this month. So basically every month you get new marketing and mindset materials from me. And I like the group to basically give me what they need, right? Like, so I don't want to just kind of put stuff out that doesn't make sense for them. And I know something that they've been really struggling with a lot, and a lot of you guys struggle with, is this target client sort of deeper dive. So when I work one-on-one with people, it's a lot easier and faster for us to dive into that because it's one-on-one. But I wanted to come up with something that was going to help my groups. And so I just kind of came up with, I've been working on it for a while. Let's just be honest. I finally finished it this month, and it is a deep dive PDF. I also have a little video that goes along with it for them that walks them through it. And I've gotten some really good feedback on that. So if you're looking for a group that is affordable, that is still going to keep you accountable, and that includes actual coaching, because you get to hop on a Zoom with me and get your questions answered and get all of your, whether it's business or mindset stuff, hashed out. That's what we do inside of the group. And it's a really, really awesome supportive group. And you also get a private Facebook group there as well. That's very active, actually. So you can join us there. The link for Elevate is below. And then I do have, I think, 2 more spots for my one-on-one coaching. And I do packages for those. I very rarely do one-offs, meaning, single calls. Every now and then when I have the capacity, I will announce it, usually on my Instagram or on my email list. But right now I am doing a minimum of 3 months. So you could do 3 months, 6 months, and there is also a yearly option. So if you're looking for an ongoing accountability partner, a coach who is going to help you in all aspects of your business and also help you transform your life, let's chat. So have a phenomenal rest of your week, friends, and I will see you back here next time.